The Kansas City Chiefs are tripling down on their self-fulfilling prophecy before they go to training camp. What does it mean today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome in, everybody. We are brought to you today by Gametime. So download that Gametime app. Use our account code for you. That's Locked On NFL, and you're going to get $20 off for your first ticket purchase over at Gametime. Terms apply, but check it out. We have a lot to talk about as we start to twist towards the actual foundation of what training camp is. I have some questions about what the attitude difference is, and our guy Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest is here to help sort us out. You can find him at Chiefs Digest and at Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find me on RGR Football, on NFL33.com, and obviously RogueAPC.com. A lot to go over there, but we appreciate you tuning in today. Make sure that you like and sub and hit the bell here on YouTube. Same with Matt's channel on Chiefs Digest. And then get over to the Spotify and the Apple Music platforms and get signed up there on the audio side, because it is everywhere all the time. We are 5 days a week, year-round, no matter what. And you guys can even get that much more. You everydayers, we appreciate you, and we love hearing from you on the text line at 816-357-8781. Now, what's different and what can we expect in this training camp? That's coming up later in the show, and we are going to talk about what the difference is in the logistics of this training camp, what's different in St. Joe. But I want to start right now, Matt, with the thing that's been standing out to me really since before the ring ceremony, but ever since then in particular. It's not just that you see more players out and about around the world. Travis, obviously, part of the Eras Tour and on stage and doing all kinds of Travis things. But Justin Reed in Germany, both of them down at the film festival in Cannes. Like, it is a much, I feel like, proposed global profile for Chiefs players right now. And I think that that's on purpose. Growing the brand around the world right now at the height of back-to-back championships makes a lot of sense to me, especially if you're Clark Hunt. But does it help the team, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the better question, I guess, is maybe does it hurt the team? Because I don't see a lot of evidence that it does. I mean, this team went on a kind of a similar world tour last year. I mean, it was different faces. So I think, for instance, I think it was McColl that went over to Germany, or maybe that was 2 years ago that McColl went to Germany. There was other players who went to Germany. Some of the other players went to Germany last year to promote the game that was going to be there. So, I mean, to a certain degree, the Chiefs always seem to have something international going on. And you're right. I mean, building the brand is something that this team is absolutely focused on. They're certainly, focusing on certain parts of Europe, and they've got an eye on other parts of the world as well. Patrick and Travis are really gateways to them to do that, but they're also trying to find ways to get other players involved too. But I mean, I really don't think that it does hurt the team in that respect. I mean, certainly this time of year, if they were doing it once you get the training camp, then yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you talk about, they really take it away from football. But right now, I mean, especially right now, this particular moment in time, this is time off. I mean, this is everybody's time off. This is your opportunity to get away. It's your last chance before the season. Go out and do what you want to do. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, Patrick and Travis are living their best lives. I don't think you can argue that they'd rather be spending their time any other way. But, yeah, I mean, hey, are players talking differently this year than they did last year? Yeah, I mean, they are. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Last year, there was, and part of that stemmed back from the Super Bowl 54 hangover. I don't know if I'd really call it that necessarily, but you might call it that, because they had Super Bowl 55. But, there was definitely, some that kind of felt that the focus on run it back maybe did make it harder, that it made them more of a target. Maybe it raised the expectations a little bit much, throughout the entire season, and just maybe made everybody press a little bit more. Last year, I mean, they purposely made sure not to talk about running it back. I mean, it was focusing on one Super Bowl. That was all you could win. You can't win two in 1 year. So make sure you win the one in front of you. And then, hey, they backed it up and did it. This year, though, it's mixed. There are some players who say, hey, we're not talking about it at all. Nope, nobody, everybody's focused on it. And maybe that's the company line coming down from the head coach. But then others are like, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they get asked about it all the time. So it's the classic question. I mean, are you talking about a three-peat? Well, yeah, because you guys ask about it all the time. So we have to talk about a three-peat.
Well, it's been very stark. I've noticed it as well, is that it does come up a lot. And maybe it's the way that things are edited, but I do notice there's a little bit more voluntarily mentioning it than I expected. And I wonder if that is, again, this is a very young team that has a lot of chutzpah around them. There are guys that have been back-to-back championships in their only seasons in this league. So there's a lot of confidence there. And I wonder if that is now the opposite of last season, feeding into it. Like, we have these veterans that know that they have to push for it. They understand the historical significance. Now, maybe you're trying to push the younger guys around into that frame of mind as well, because they know that they have the upside to go achieve in order to push this team to newer heights to get to that three-peat. I just think it's a little bit risky. I would rather play it slow, but do you think that if this continues up until camp when they get down to real business, is there any negative drawback there for you?
I mean, I do get that this is different. This is, like I said earlier, I mean, I think that maybe some players felt like, and that the pressure was increased in 2020 because they were feeling like maybe that they were trying to win 2 Super Bowls at once. And now you could certainly say, hey, but if you're talking about three-peat, aren't you talking about winning 3 Super Bowls at once instead of just focusing on the one in front of you? But I think there's a little bit of just inevitability of leaning into it and realizing that, they can't ignore it. I mean, this is going to be the question that they're asked all the time. And, I think that some of the players are just acknowledging the realism of it, that you can't every week when somebody asks you if you're thinking about three-peat and say, I didn't even think about it until you just mentioned it. I mean, no, it's reality. I mean, it's what they're trying to do. I mean, every day I'm sure that someone says the word three-peat to them, and even if it's just the guy at Quick Trip, I'm sure it's somebody saying the word three-peat to them every single day. So you can't ignore it. I mean, I think there is a little bit of just leaning into it. And that's probably the way to go. And let's face it. I mean, you mentioned it. There's a lot of players who were not on this team in 2020. So, they didn't go through that. They didn't get, I think there's certainly a little bit more of the, reticence of talking about it with the veterans who've been on the team. They want to focus on the task at hand and maybe are downplaying the three-peat angle a little bit. But, there's other players who have been sold. I mean, hey, if Marquise Brown wants to talk about, Hollywood Brown wants to talk about, helping this team get a three-peat, can't really blame him because that's what he was pitched. I mean, he's told, hey, come here because we're going to try and make history with you, man. I mean, there's a lot of additions to this team who've been sold on the story of a three-peat. So, they're not going to ignore it. They're going to lean into it. And for those guys, maybe it doesn't matter because Hollywood's just trying to win one. He's not trying to three-peat. He's just trying to get that first ring.
Let's keep that hunger rolling then. I tell you what, there are a number of things that are changing yet again for the preseason, the training camp portion of it. And I'm actually really pissed off about a couple of things of it. We're going to get to that coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Passion, drive, patience. It brings the trophy home, just like the Chiefs have. And it can also affect your main vehicle, your ride or die. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain that vehicle, give it its peak performance, as well as over-the-top superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, everything to make it speedy, powerful, and stylish, all at eBay Motors because they have you covered. Over 122 million parts for your ride or die, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for because eBay has a guaranteed fit. Your part will fit your ride every single time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're not burning cash. You're burning rubber. At least you're trying to. With all the parts that you need and the pieces that you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Guaranteed fit is available for U.S. customers only. Make sure that if you need 24/7 coverage, you're on Locked On Sports Today because that's what we got for you. All the time, rain, shine, night or day, you can get it there and on Amazon Fire TV. So make sure you check that out. Matt, I get fired up about this because I feel like there's this, you raise the bar, the league wants to raise it on you yet again. We're talking about a team that has played back-to-back 20-game seasons, right? Like, I can't even count how many it's been in a row at this point because it just makes me furious. And now training camp starts earlier and earlier each season because you have the obviously opening game and all this stuff, and now it's on Thursday. I mean, we might as well start on the 4th of July weekend at this point because they're going to be in camp 2 weeks later. And that's the part that's really starting to get to me. And I'm wondering why the team isn't pushing back on it. Because I feel like the longevity of these seasons combined with early training camps is a detriment, even though I think Andy probably loves being in camp early. I think overall that just stresses the team out even more. Where are you on it?
Yeah, kind of torn. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, with the new CBA, there were some changes, and there were fine changes for the vast majority of NFL teams because it did make some adjustments to camp. But one of the things now is that, the way that teams report, it's all based on your opening game. So, and there's a few exceptions, I think there's exceptions for the teams that play in the Hall of Fame game. And there's a few others here and there that some teams get to camp a little bit earlier. But, the Chiefs are going to be the earliest team to open camp because they're playing on that Thursday night game. And, what it does is it essentially adds another week to camp. So instead of going to camp, which is typically 15 or 16 practices, this time around, I think if I remember correctly off the top of my head, 21 public practices. That's a big number. And, and it's great for fans. You get a few more opportunities to see the team and all, but for the players, it means a full 31 days in training camp. And that's a lot. Because, there's not that many days off. The players do get a couple here and there for rest periods. A lot of players, sometimes they don't leave for the breaks. Really their best chance to have some downtime and maybe get back with their families and everything or around the first preseason game, because then they do have a couple of days off. But, this year, for instance, they're traveling to Jacksonville in that first one. So, it's really going to be the time after they get back from Jacksonville and then before they're back at camp, basically 36 hours after the game, that's not a ton of time. So, there's probably a few that will try to jump out on the getaway days after practice for a day off. They'll probably try and get out of St. Joe's as fast as they can to go see their families and then get a quick day off. But it's a long period of time for everybody. And it's not just the players. I mean, I know I can complain about it too, but it's a grind for the people behind the scenes, everybody from the equipment managers, trainers, anybody that's in a support role before the team. It's a tough grind. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately there is an easy solution, Ryan, which is stop winning. Don't go to the AFC Championship or bust every single year. Don't win the Super Bowl back-to-back years. Nobody wants that. So, that's the easy solution. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you than that. I mean, the NFL isn't going to give you any break. I mean, like I said, at least it's streamlined now. At least it's consistent. But the teams that get hurt the most are the teams that play on Thursday night. And right now, the Chiefs are playing on Thursday night every single year.
Yeah. I'd like to see the team then react a little bit and make some changes of their own. Like you said, 21 practices. And he's been known to throw a rest day in there. Let's go get hamburgers and see a movie or something. We've seen that in years past. It seems to have been thinner the last couple of camps. I feel like that might be a benefit if they were able to sprinkle those in at this longer camp a little bit more. It doesn't seem like they're going to, because they already have the schedule out and announced. So what are there some other options to maybe take it easier on the guys overall? Maybe focus on recovery. Obviously, there'll be a nutrition aspect. There'll be, obviously getting sleep in the dorms is always a challenge. You can try to help them out that way. What else would you change if you had the option to try to make it easier on these guys?
It's funny you should mention that because, that's one thing that we had here in Kansas City last week. There was a symposium, a panel discussion at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City, about analytics in football. And one of the things that got brought up, Mike Pennell really was the one that brought it up, but then the other, panelists started talking about it as well, is that, NFL teams use analytics to really manage workload for the players during the week, during training camp, because all the players wear these sensors. So, they're able to track their usage. They're able to track how many snaps they're getting in practices, able to track their speeds, all of these things. And when a player starts to slow down, that's when the analytics kick in, and there's somebody there to say to the coaching staff, hey, wait a minute, you know what? This player A, is 10% slower than he was 2 or 3 days ago. We need to back him off. So he needs to go 75%, before day to give him some rest. And you see that. I mean, you absolutely see them doing that kind of thing. And, and Andy, he does not change a lot. I mean, that's one of the reasons why training camp is the way that it is, because he's got a method. It works, and he doesn't change it. He does tweak it from time to time. And, one of the things, let's face it, they do like the fact that playing on Thursday night gives you a mini bye week right off the start. I mean, you get an extra 3 days of rest that nobody else in the league gets in week 1. I mean, they do like that. And then you look at, also how Andy Reid manages practices now during the season. It used to be second half of the year when he would go to these shorter Wednesday practices and lighter Wednesday practices. It's almost week 2 now when the lighter practices start on a Wednesday. No pads, no helmets, anything like that. Just give the players a little bit more of a break. And, and you're right. I mean, they used to have maybe the going out for cheeseburgers or the movie and everything like that. Part of it is that they're on the field less now, through the CBA certainly, but Andy's kind of decided and realized that, you know what, the key is going out and working at a quick pace and working at game speed and doing it for a shorter time and using your time with the players in other ways. He doesn't actually max out the amount of time that they get for having players on the field. I mean, so that's one of the kind of breaks. I mean, for as much as Andy Reid gets talked about having a hard training camp, the reason why it's a hard camp is the speed and the pace. It's not the length. Because honestly, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you went and you looked at practices around the league, Andy Reid's training camp practices might be shorter than anybody else's now. We were talking, before the show started, they used to have and this was part of the CBA as well, but they'd have practices that started 8:15 and run until close to 11. Those are gone. I mean, every practice starts at 9:15. Those usually done at 11 or 11:30. Even their 10-10-10s, are not very long. Those are like 90 minutes long. But everything is at a pace that's designed to mimic game day and to build the stamina. It's not Andy's not about just running guys into the ground anymore, where like maybe he was in 1999. Now it's about just making sure that these guys are testing their mettle. He's pushing them the way they would get pushed on a game. And it's not just about breaking them down and rebuilding them. It's about, kind of strengthening them and building them up for the regular season.
I like that. And it brings me up another question. So when we get back, I'm going to ask some of the more intimate details for both the fans and the reporters that cover it, as well as all the players, coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are back. Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell here on this channel. Go to Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform and get on ChiefsDigest.com to read all of Matt's work. A lot going on here as we prepare for the next run here, Matt. I just want to hit you with some interesting questions. As you said, practices are starting a little bit later. They're going a lot shorter. So time on field cuts down. My question to you, we saw this phenomenon last week. Who's the first player in this camp that loses their lunch due to the pace of how these practices are run?
Well, your safe bet there is usually a rookie. I've heard maybe a rookie or two maybe had that happen behind the scenes during OTA. So maybe that already hit when there were some hot days at OTAs. I'm not sure who I'd take in the pool this year because the lesson's been learned. I mean, you kind of have to focus on the guys that maybe don't work in the heat as much, even if they look like they're pretty fit, because sometimes you get surprised by that. So yeah, I might be looking for the guys that, came from the upper Midwest, I mean, Leo Chanel gives it all a bad name, but Leo is frankly one of the fittest guys you're ever going to see. But hey, and after Rasheed last year, I mean, you're going to have to put a watch on Xavier, and especially Xavier, didn't get a workout during OTA. So you know what? getting the conditioning test in might test him.
I think you're right, because my money's on him or Norzad from the frozen north of Michigan. I think there's going to be an acclimatization process here that I'm very interested in. For the fans, the adjustment will be very similar to last year, like you mentioned. Start times at 9:15 at camp, shorter practice times. In your opinion, does that make it easier to go to camp? Should people be looking more forward to it because it's more action crammed into a smaller spot? Or does it make it more difficult to make the trek to St. Joe and get back out of your day and that kind of thing, knowing that it's a shorter practice?
I mean, I actually think that it does make it a little bit easier. In particular, for one, I've noticed that since they moved the practices from 8:15 to 9:15, the traffic flow is better, because you used to be arriving at practice at the exact same time that people were going to work. So if you were going from Kansas City to St. Joe, or even if you're driving around in St. Joe, the traffic getting off there at the highway for the exit for the stadium, I mean, there were plenty of days, Ryan, I'd be backed up for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, you'd be backed up quite a ways, waiting through 5 or 6 light changes to get your turn in. And I don't remember those anymore. I mean, since they made the move to doing mostly 9:15 practices, I think it makes the traffic flow a little bit easier, even on those days when, the quarterbacks are making autographs. I mean, those are the days that it's packed. I mean, it's usually a capacity crowd on most days, but look at your schedules. When the quarterbacks are signing autographs, that's the day you need to be there probably 15, 30 minutes early, because it's going to be difficult that day, no matter what day of the week it's on. But yeah, I mean, it's a shorter practice, but I think it's more enjoyable, because the ones that you used to have that were, 2.5 hours, those were, a lot of drills. There, wasn't as much team periods, so there was a lot more action to watch, and it was a lot more of the ones versus ones, because, you go for one of the 10-10-10 practices, which, if you're looking at the schedule, are usually right before day off. So those practices are usually really short, really light, and it's going to be ones versus twos. It's going to be, as Andy Reid says, it's the twos are serving the offense and the defense. So, it's designed for the ones to succeed. It's designed for them to test out what they're doing, to look good. Nobody's running a defense against them. They're just basically, going through a walkthrough. So, to me, those practices, the other ones that are, you're out on 45, those are really entertaining to me now, because, they still have the drills period, but they've got a lot more team. And that's one thing that, we talk a lot about, are those long day drives. And the reality of it is that anymore, Andy Reid does like a long drive period almost every single day. It's just how long it is. It used to be you could rely pretty solidly that, the ones might get 10 snaps, twos get 2 snaps, that kind of a thing. Now, you'll see right from the very beginning, maybe the ones get 10 snaps, and the next days it's 12, then it's 14, then it's 17, then it's 19. There's a buildup that he does throughout camp. And so, I think that, for those, they do a little more team periods, which I think that fans get more out of. And I think those are a little bit more enjoyable. So I honestly think the practices, the way they've got them designed now, are pretty fan friendly.
I like the concept. And I will say this, the period that I watched the least at camp over the years, been going to training camps for pushing 20 years now, has always been the special teams units. And I have to say, that's not going to be the case this year. I think fans are going to dig it more. I certainly have a lot to watch. I know you will. So that's the other one, is like, make sure you're there on time, that you're getting in those special periods and you're not getting distracted, shall we say, like I usually do. I think that's probably the big takeaway of what to expect this year.
Yeah. If you're going to go and get a snack, or you need to go to the bathroom, anything like that, do it during punt. You can afford that. Do not do it during kickoff. Because if you want to see Justin Reed or Louis Rees-Zamm at kickoff, and you want to see the new kickoff rules in effect, and you need to check it out immediately. So yeah, don't leave until you see what special teams, is on the field that day. And they're going to be doing kickoff probably every single day, whether it's cover team or return team. So they'll probably be doing a session of that every single day.
I'm looking forward to it, folks. You can find out all the details at ChiefsDigest.com. Chiefs Digest here on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on all the platforms, not just this one, but go ahead and subscribe right now and click the thumbs up. That'll help us. If you hit the bell, you'll get notifications when we do something live, which we will be doing come training camp and those kind of special reports. We're with you 5 days a week plus, and you can get it all plus then some on 816-357-8781 on our text line. Matt, thanks for the time setting us up and letting us know what to expect.
Hey, training camp's almost here. I can't wait, man.
I'm looking forward to it. It's a fun ritual every week. We hope you guys are ready for it. Thanks for being with us as we continue to prep and run down the rest of the roster, getting ready for St. Joe's. Don't miss it. We'll be back with Matt next week. Thanks for being with us today. We'll talk to you next time.